Previously on agentpalmer.com, Mr. S is a tell-all for the chairman of the board. Palmer's trek continues with Star Trek The Next Generation, and Jess is still out there fighting the good fight for citizens who agree with her and for those who don't. This is the Palmer Files, episode 120, with James Gaddis, a former journalist, currently a digital marketer of many hats, who's channeling his nostalgia and passion for storytelling on YouTube. We talk about crafting a story, being on both sides of the camera, digital marketing and change, comfort zones, snap judgments, and we attempt to replace primary with firstiary, plus much, much more. Are you ready? Let's do the show! Hello and welcome to the Palmer Files. I'm your host, Jason Stershik, also known as Agent Palmer, and on this 120th episode is James Gaddis. James is host of NostalgAK, that's NostalgAK, because he's giving you some 80s and 90s nostalgia from Alaska. He wears many hats as a former journalist and a current entrepreneur, digital marketer, and video creator, so be prepared for discussions about process and a healthy dose of storytelling and tips about research. Plus, being on both sides of the camera, learning, being the journey, keeping focus, getting outside of a comfort zone, how long does this feel, getting lost in media, sometimes, if you can't remember, leave it alone, more physical reading, the Pomodoro technique, too many tabs, focus, YouTube, and much, much more. All of that is coming your way shortly. But first, remember that if you want to discuss this episode as you listen or afterwards, you can find all related ways to contact my guest, James Gaddis, and myself in the show notes. There you will find links to James's YouTube channel, youtube.com/nostalgic, that's NostalgAK, and his other pertinent links and socials. Don't forget you can see all of my writings and rantings on agentpalmer.com, and of course, email can be sent to thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. So without further ado, let's get into it. Jimmy, you were in broadcast journalism, and now you have a YouTube channel. And that seems to be like someone, and I could be fishing here, which I don't mind doing, but like that seems to me like you still had more stories to tell that you couldn't just always tell in broadcast journalism, and you were like, I want to keep going. You weren't like fed up and done with it and like, I'm out. Is that the case?
For the most part. Oh, well, I was fed up with broadcast. Losing my job, getting laid off. They say you haven't worked in media or you haven't worked in broadcast news until you've been laid off. So I just kind of became part of the club. Okay. Many of my friends have been laid off or switched professions or, just gotten out of media in general for whatever reason. And, I felt like, hey, I've spent almost 20 years either in front of the camera or behind the camera. Okay. And took all of these things that I love to do. I loved shooting, telling a story through the lens, telling a story in front of the camera. And I love the 80s and 90s and all the stuff I grew up with as a kid. And so I said, you know what? I do want to tell more stories, but I want to do some more research. I want to dive into things that I did love as a kid and learn more about them. And so essentially, that's what the YouTube channel is about. It's not so much, hey, I'm the expert and let me tell you about X, Y, and Z. It's no, I have a lot of surface knowledge about the things I grew up with and loved, but I don't know a lot about them, right? So I get jacked up when like, look at those He-Man figures. And I'll lose my mind. Yeah, let's go look at those He-Man figures. I love He-Man. But if you had a deep conversation with me about the lore behind it or things along those lines, I'd only have a certain amount of knowledge that I could possibly share with you. So my goal is to just learn more and share that experience with the subscribers, with people that are watching.
I think that's maybe one of the most noble reasons to start any kind of channel, whether it be the written word or on YouTube or anywhere else, because I think a lot of people don't want to share the journey and they don't want to share the deep dive. They want to be like, hey, look at me. I know that in episode 3 of the 4th season at the 12th minute, and oh, by the way, I didn't look this up. I just knew this off the top of my head. And it's like, that's fine. You know, like, I joked like, the tonnage of like vastly different interests that I have and the useless knowledge that comes with all of them. Yeah. Like I grew up playing Magic the Gathering and I've gotten back into it. I still have an encyclopedic knowledge of every card that existed up until 1998. Mm-hmm. The ones more recently, like the ones in the last 25 years, not so much. Right. Is this information relevant to the game now? No. Is this relevant to my life? No. Is it in there? Absolutely. Can I get rid of it? No. It's there. I don't know what to do with this, because like occasionally somebody will say something and it'll pop in, and the same with like sports trivia that I know. It's like, oh, that number, why is that number ringing? Oh, that okay, yeah, that's because that number reminds me of this story from this season. Yeah, I like the idea of you taking the time to dive into what you don't know and explaining like, hey, this is what I learned. Isn't this cool? Because yeah. I almost want to know more.
That's my hope, is that you'll feel that way when you're done, that you want to learn more with me. Of course, you want to come back to the channel and subscribe and just kind of join me on this journey of learning more as I go. And that is truly, that's truly been the fun part. Most people think that all the hard work isn't, it's the journey, not the destination. The journey kind of is, because it's amazing the rabbit hole that you end up going down, because you don't know as much, right? So you've got to start somewhere, and one article leads you to something else, which leads you to something else, which leads you to, and then next thing you know, you're like, I had no idea it ran this deep, I just the littlest things, how far back or how much maybe work went into something that seemed very simple on the surface. It's kind of wild what you don't know until you know it.
So the question I would have is, how are you structuring yourself, really? Because like I know, I haven't done a deep dive for the blog in, we'll go with years. Let's just go with years, okay? Mm-hmm. And the 2 deep dives that come to mind are, I did a deep dive on Deke, the animation house that did like Inspector Gadget and a bunch of those kind of things, because I don't know, it came up one day and I was like, whatever happened to it? And I went down that rabbit hole and I wrote that post, and the other one I did was like a deep dive on the history of coffee, nice, which other people have done too, but like it was fun getting in there myself and being like, well, these 2 histories, like one's telling this story and one's telling this story, and like, why are these not the same? But like, you go down these rabbit holes and they kind of uncover other things, right? So you have to be disciplined to stay on your one topic, even though you're finding like all these other things. And I guess I just want to know, like, information is like the villains we learn about as Hydra. You cut off one head and 2 more appear. So like when you're going down, like, are you disciplined in like, staying on task, or are you like, I'm allowing myself to go off and like just do another thing? Like, how are you with that? Because I know I've personally struggled with like, 3 hours into the research and you're like, well, this is like 7 posts. Like, I can't do this in one, or what have you. Like, and is your journalism background helping you, I guess?
100% was going to be my answer.
Okay.
So you go out and you're out 4, 5, 6 hours working on a news story, right? That you need to come back. You've talked to 3, 4 people. You've got, an hour's worth of sound bites or something along those lines. But you've got 1 minute and 30 A minute
Yeah.
30. You've worked all day, right? You could create a half an hour documentary with the amount of sound bites that you have collected, but you've got to put this story out in a minute and a half. You might get a little bit of time before and after the story, to as the reporter to front it, maybe live on the scene or something along those lines, live in the studio, and that gives you another 20 seconds. Then you have the anchor intro, right? So it's always broken down into these segments, right? The anchor has a little bit of information to give, tosses it to you. You've got a little bit of information to give. Toss to your, we called it a package, which is the story, all right? You've got your minute and a half. Come back out to the reporter, another 10 seconds to give a little bit more info. And then the anchor tag, they wrap it up. They might have a little bit more info. So you're talking 2 minutes, something along those lines.
Maybe.
So if they don't cut your time. I take that experience, and that has been a big benefit when it comes to diving down a rabbit hole of, say, the first ever animated, what was it? It was a commercial. The first time we saw He-Man animated, right? It could have made this a 20-minute long video, but I try to keep focus. Focus is always the thing in a story, right? What's your focus so that you don't go astray? And if you learn some other interesting things, you need to know how much time to give them. And then maybe if it's something you can break out into a different story, save it for another video. And then that helps you grow this list, that you can work on if and when time allows, which is, it doesn't, but
because this is the YouTube channel is your passion project, but you wear I guess, can I ask, how many hats exactly do you wear?
I've got quite a few. I've got a few. I run my own business, so that takes up a majority of my time. So I've got, I do social media management, digital marketing, video production. And so I package all of that for clients on a monthly retainer basis. So I've got a handful of clients that I'm doing work for every day. I've got a few people that that work for me. For a few of those clients doing the social media, I've got an editor if I need to take some of the load off, but that takes up a majority of my time. And then YouTube is secondary. I would love one day for YouTube to become firstiary. What? Primary, yes.
Yeah. Although I like firstiary. Firstiary is so much better because
let's roll with that.
It does go much. At least from a poetic standpoint, firstiary pairs much better with secondary.
Yeah. Why isn't it? I'm going to look into that one. But it is definitely secondary. And I do it when I can. And that is why I think YouTube is a beast, and it is a tough one. You've got to feed the beast. So they say. There are some folks who get some significant numbers, and they post maybe once a month, but it's a tough algorithm to figure out sometimes. I think it's one of those where I think you know what you need to do. Do I have the ability and the time to do it?
Well, I think I'm not trying to be contrarian when I say this, but I think a lot of that has shifted in the last 2 years. And I think, you're in social media and I used to be in digital marketing. And the one thing I keep seeing is that as the pillars have slightly fallen and shifted of the different platforms kind of changing, whether it's changing algorithms or changing ownership or just the user base shifting. We from 2012 to about 2018, we had a great 6-year run where Facebook did this, Twitter did this, and Instagram did this, and YouTube did that other thing. Mm-hmm. And I think it shifted, and people are a bit more wary of putting everything into one thing. And so I think from the side of this podcast is my passion project. Do what makes you happy right now, man. Mm-hmm. Because the one thing that I've seen more than anything else is burnout from people chasing when the algorithm's out of your control. If the wind shifts, like we're all boats without a single sail. like when the tide changes, the tide changes. Like we cannot, like, occasionally, if it is your full-time job, you might be able to get a sail up and change because everything else shifted. But for the most part, those of us with more than one hat or more than one thing, like, if the creation process, if the research process, whatever process is the one that makes you happy, like, I'm here for it. And the other thing is, we're getting to a point where content has become a dirty word, and people will watch your video and go, well, he's reading off a prompter and he doesn't seem to be happy. or versus like, oh, like he genuinely is telling me this because he's excited he found this thing. And I've tried to, I've been reading every book in my house. I don't know about you, but I've collected quite a few books that I don't know how I got. And it's challenged me to read outside of my comfort zone. I don't know. Like, do we ever really have a comfort zone when it comes to reading? Like, I guess I'm reading things I wouldn't normally read.
Okay.
I've tried to challenge myself in terms of like podcasts and YouTube videos to go out there and, again, experience, because some of the things that I'm like, well, it's on my shelf. Like, I got it from somebody, has some value. I mean, it's a printed book. It's got some value to someone somewhere. Sometimes it's me and sometimes it's not, but like, I think you need to expand, and I'm trying not to like reduce the size of my bubble and my sphere of influence to just like, oh, well, I like these three things. Just feed me these three things. And when you do that, you see some of the worst in some of these places where it's like, that's a person reading off a teleprompter who could not care, who doesn't care about me. It's like, then why are you doing it? Mm-hmm. Why? And, you know.
Yeah, I think anything I put out is typically something I'm going to love. I haven't started to chase the algorithm yet or, you know, make any assumptions as to what I think. I'll ask people, obviously, what do you want to see on the channel? What kind of content do you want? Because the people that have been kind enough to subscribe up to this point, they matter, you know, and if I want them along on the journey, then, you know, I want to be able to do some things with them, so to speak, that, you know, they're on board for, not just always choose what I want to do, and getting out of that comfort zone and doing something that I'm not familiar with. Who knows what kind of world it can open up? It's like when you judge or you don't choose something on Netflix or whatever streaming service because the cover image, you're just like, I don't think so. And, you know, and then perchance you happen to watch it and you go, that was really good. But it's amazing how you just based whether or not you're going to watch that movie on essentially on the thumbnail, thinking I'm not going to like it just because.
So
and then you love it.
I have the perfect analogy because it happened today. My partner and I love Twister, the original Twister. It's like, it's one of those movies that we will just watch. If it's on, we'll watch it, or we'll just throw it on. Mm-hmm. And during the Super Bowl, they teased Twisters, the sequel. And so we sat down and we watched the trailer, which is when you watch the trailer for Twisters, it's devoid of all the humor and like human emotion that you got from some of those ancillary characters in the original. And I was like, well, hold on. What's the original trailer? Like, we don't, like, these are things that we don't remember these things. Mm-hmm. So we went back and we watched the original two versions. Like, there's two different versions of the original trailer, or two different trailers and both of them are very similar to the sequel. There's no humor. Like, it's all about the storm. There's no fun in the chase and like passion that like is one of the reasons I love the original. And so it leads me to believe that I don't know why I watched Twister the first time, but it wasn't the trailer, because I watched the trailer today for a movie I love. And I went, yeah, I wouldn't watch that movie based on the trailer. No way. No way. So I might give the second one a shot because maybe it's hidden behind there. Right. But like you have to click on that thing. Like I try and take all suggestions from people that I meet, whether on this podcast or friends, and just go, all right, when I get the time, I'll watch that. Because whether you liked it or not, you recommended it or you brought it up. And so it's a way to get out of my comfort zone. It's a way to to watch something new. And I think people are stuck in bubbles. Holy moly, are we stuck in bubbles? All of us.
Oh, for sure. Bubbles are comfortable. And I try to get out of them when I can. And then I'll find myself back in the bubble thinking, oh, I really haven't tried as hard maybe as I could have.
Well, that's the thing. We can always go home again.
Opportunities. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can always go back and get comfortable.
Yeah.
What was I watching? I was watching some guru, trying to turn my life around. And I think, one of the things that I took from it was you need to do something that essentially makes you uncomfortable every day. Like do something you don't like every day.
Well, that's easy because like I've gotten to a point now where I try and like clean up a little bit every day instead of at the moment it's don't go to bed with dishes in the sink. Like either wash them or put them in the dishwasher, which admittedly is something small, but it's a bad habit to get into. And so I hate it. Like there's times it's like late at night and I'm like, all right, back to the kitchen I go. Like I completely forgot. Like you just get on to something, and especially, and you can appreciate this when you have those multiple hats, and when you finish and like maybe nighttime is your time for your YouTube channel, which you're excited about. You finish dinner and you go, all right, time to research this, or watch this thing that I really want to watch and take notes and see what I can come up with. And then like all of a sudden, like, oh, you know what? I never really cleaned up from dinner. I'm going to do that. And it's not fun and it's not glorious, but you do it anyway. And so,
and then when you wake up, it's clean. You're like, whoa, yeah, this is nice.
It's,
I get it.
That's the thing. Like they're the same with my desk, which I'm still horrible at. Like I'm at a weekly cleaning at this point for my desk. Now, most of the stuff I do is digital, but I'm still a note taker or like jotting things down. So at the end of every week, it's like, here's all the scraps of paper from like the 4 different things I've worked on. And what's worse is when they're ongoing projects and they're not finished, and I'm like, well, I can't throw this out. What do I do with this? What am I doing? But yeah, you got to clean that clean kitchen, that clean workspace. Oh
yeah. Mine's pretty clean. Mine is for the most part very clean, but yeah, got to get out of your comfort zone. Little things. It's just that you never know. You just don't know. And usually you'll be surprised. I don't know. I find that I'm typically surprised to some extent. There's this great guy, Tommy. He's a subscriber and he's always asking to do a review of Pride of the X-Men. And anything X-Men, right over my head. Zero knowledge, didn't watch it as a kid. I'm not really interested in it that much. It just wasn't in my wheelhouse. And then one day he said, it's my birthday tomorrow. Can you do Pride of the X-Men? Didn't have time to do a full review, but I at least did the cartoon intro as a reel for him on Facebook.
Sure.
And so I wanted a little background information, and it's very tiny to me, but I thought it was this long series, and no, it was I think it's a 22-minute long episode. It was a pilot, and it didn't go any further than that. It wasn't picked up, but so many people still love it. Like I think Wolverine in it is Australian, something. I don't, but just these little tidbits of information, and then you find out that the really popular arcade game, the X-Men arcade game from back in the day, the characters, or at least the art, is based off of this Pride of the X-Men. So just little thing. I was like, oh, that's so cool. Now I have a connection. You know, I've been hearing about it, but I never looked into it. And now I learned a little something. And just those tiny little moments of making these connections, just my brain lights up and I get really excited. There's one video, I'll probably give away the surprise, but it's about Ubu the dog, or Sit, Ubu Sit.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I think I saw something online and I said, what's the story? I want to know what the story is behind that. So I did my research. I looked around. And this is where, when you don't know what you don't know, as you start to learn more, as you start to do the research, sometimes the story can change. And that's something I learned in the business too. You go in thinking this is what it's going to be, right? Sometimes you have your blinders on and you're just moving along. Like, I'm going to tell the history, A to B, pop, 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 and we're done here. So I'm going through old interviews, and man, his name escapes me, but the guy who owned the production company owned the dog, Ubu. I've also learned that everyone and their mother apparently thought the dog's name was Boo Boo. Sit, Boo Boo, Sit. My sister included. I would say half the comments on the video that I made were people saying I thought his name was Boo Boo. Sit, Boo Boo, Sit. But and this got me so excited. So I'm going through interviews. Okay, here's the history. We were in Paris. We brought the dog. Bah, 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 bah. He talks about the ending. We had something animated. I didn't like it. So we just put up the picture of the dog. And he said, that's me. That's me saying, sit, Ubu, sit. And then I had one of the sound guys or an engineer or somebody do the bark. And I went, what? That's a person? My whole life, I thought that was Ubu barking. We all thought it was Ubu barking.
Yeah, we all thought it was a dog. Definitely.
My jaw hit the ground and I said, that's the focus now. Like, that's what the video is about. And I love those moments when you go, oh, I didn't know that.
Is there a way that you can, I don't know, help people when they're putting not stories or articles, but just storytelling in general? Because like one of the things about that is when you get to the end, it changes. But I mean, you initially set out to find out what the story was with the dog, and you discovered that, you uncovered that. But with maybe like longer stories, it's easier to get your blinders like shocked, like, oh my God, I can take this left turn. But not every time should you, right? Like sometimes like putting a story together and researching it is a maze. And I don't know, like you've obviously, I mean, you did it professionally. So like, is there any hint you can give other than doing it so long and having natural instinct into where to follow it? Like, is it really just the more you do it, the better you get?
Yeah. I mean, I think you just have to know what to look for. It's tough. You know, like it's like when you're doing an interview and you need to know which questions to ask. Well, you need to know which roads to go down. You need to know what's important and what's not, what you can leave behind. You don't want to, we used to talk about, hey, you know, our morning show. That's what brought me up to Alaska, was to do a morning show here. And we had these segments that we did with a historian, and they were in this block that was about 3 minutes long. And so they had us stick to around 3, but we could play with the time. Okay. And I remember our editor would finish up and he'd say, oh, it's 3:45. It's 4. It's 4 minutes, whatever, what have you. And we would ask, does it feel like 4 minutes? He'd say, no. Okay, we'll give it the extra time. You know, when you force it, when you're trying to make a video longer just to make it longer, when you're including additional information that doesn't really help with, again, your focus and the point you're trying to make, that's when it can get long-winded. That's when I think people start to tune away. And it's the toughest part, is when you have all of this information and you've done the research. You think, well, this is all important. I've got to include all of it. Maybe not. And it's a tough balance to find. because you could just keep going. I mean, you could just keep going, and next thing you know, you've got a video that's 30 minutes long. Does it feel like 30 minutes, or does it feel like an hour to someone who's watching?
That's my current litmus test for, is a movie too long, is, did I look at my phone? Because I'll put my phone like down, like on the other, like on the coffee table, or like just slightly out of reach. But if a movie gets too long, I'll look to see how long it is. Like, I'll just, what time is it? We started this at 7. When's it over? Or like, if I have the remote, like just click the up button so you can see the scroll and be like, there's still another hour left in this movie. Like, and so I get that. Like, sometimes, like, you're like, that didn't feel like 2 hours. And sometimes you're like, that's an hour that felt like 4. Like, what are you telling? How are you engaging with the audience with whatever medium it is? I've read books that don't feel like 400 pages. You get lost in them. That's the story you want to tell, whether it's 3 minutes or 3 hours. Like, you kind of want the audience to get lost so they don't look at their watch, their phone,
right?
The little scrolly thing.
And sucked in. You've got to find a way to tell it, right? So you're not revealing too much too soon. It sounds okay. It sounds like, well, you're just trying to keep me watching, so I'll watch more of your video. No, that's the art of storytelling. If you watch a really good documentary, especially a crime documentary, they don't spoil things right in the beginning. But you're like, I need to know what happens next. And you'll notice sometimes the timeline will change. You know, they're not just going from beginning to end. They make you keep watching. They keep your interest up. And then they'll reveal something that's absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
You know, I could have started the Ubu the dog video right out of the gate with, hey, did you know that the bark at the, in this, classic Ubu, the Ubu Productions, tag at the end of Family Ties wasn't really a dog? Like, oh, I just gave it away. It's gone. So I'm going to kind of lead you in and then reveal it. Now, yeah, it keeps people watching, which is what you want. But at the same time, I think we all enjoy that journey from the outside. I know I do.
Oh, God, I'm going to sound like the oldest boomer, and I'm not, but I'm going to sound like the oldest boomer you've ever heard when I say I would rather somebody tell me a story to get an answer than Google it. I am, at this point in my life, defiantly anti-Google. Not because of anything other than, if you don't know it, you don't know it, and that's fine. And if somebody around you knows it and is going to tell you a little story about it, all the better. But do I need to know what year that was? Absolutely not. Are you going to tell me you remember that year because somebody was born that year? That's kind of amazing, because I don't retain dates that well anymore outside of a few sports ones. So like, I'm just like, so I'll be hanging out with my friends and somebody will be like, oh, I need to know the answer to that. I'd be like, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. Like, is your life going to be better because we answer this question? Absolutely not. Did you know the answer to this question before? You did not. Are you going to retain the answer after you Google it? You are definitely not. Let's skip all of let's skip the facade. No, we don't need the answer. It does not make our lives better or worse. We'll continue. I don't know. I've been happier not just whipping out my phone because I thought of a thing. Like, if I want to go down a research rabbit hole, that's different. But just you and me not being able to come up with something right now,
like, that's okay.
I'm all right with it. Like, the magic of editing, I could edit out me Googling anything I want, but I would rather not know. I don't know. I'm not a Luddite. Okay. I'm not going that far, but there are times when that stance makes me feel like a Luddite because everybody else is so quick to, like, draw on the almighty search engine for the answer.
I get it. I wish newspapers were back.
I
miss the newspaper. I miss the sports section, man. There's a part of me that misses the not stressing about getting information as soon as I wake up, or just a bit of a kinder, slower pace. I appreciate that.
Do you? I don't want to get too personal, but like, do you do anything to try and, I don't know, turn back the clock? Like, do you not look at your phone first thing? Do you try and slow drip your information?
I try.
Okay.
It is supposed to, the phone's not supposed to be in the room when I go to sleep. That's hit or miss. Not supposed to check it first thing. Supposed to, kind of have a system that I'm trying to stick to, no phone first thing in the morning.
Okay.
But I don't do very well. I'm trying to read more, less digital reading.
Okay.
Is kind of the one big thing. I had a few digital magazine subscriptions that I've turned into physical copies, which I enjoy.
Do you find the focus easier when you're handling a print magazine as opposed to when you had those digital descriptions?
Oh yeah, big time. Because it's all you had in front of you, right? There was no ability to switch immediately to something else. And that's why I have a very difficult time sometimes working. I'm constantly on the internet, whether it's for my channel, my clients, even just getting certain, looking up, I've got to download music or stock video for a project. We're all constantly online, but I'm noticing, I don't like it. And I don't like what it does to my brain. I don't like that I can't focus half the time. I don't like that I'll use the Pomodoro technique. Do you know what that is? That's essentially,
I've heard it.
It's you can set the time to whatever you want, but I'm using it to try and help me focus. And what's Pomodoro is a tomato. So one tomato essentially is 25 minutes, and then you get a 5-minute break. Try to stand up, do something along those lines. So you set a timer, and you're just supposed to strictly focus on that task at hand. I try to close tabs if I'm, sometimes maybe if I'm editing for that 25 minutes, maybe I even turn the Wi-Fi off so I can't go and search. I can't go check Facebook because it's so easy. Oh, I'm just going to check for just a second.
I think
just a second.
Tabs has got to be the biggest one for me because like I've got 2 separate offices in this house, which is really just one's in the basement. And that's like my gaming office, really. But sometimes I'll go down there to write if I can't write in this office. And like, frankly, the amount of tabs I have on both machines, this one that I use for like my consulting work and editing and recording, I shouldn't need that many tabs open. And when the one downstairs is even worse, I play games and I write. I shouldn't need that many tabs. And what's worse is they're probably duplicate tabs on both. It's like, why can't I just let go? But I'm with you. I think that it is so easy. Like I've started purposefully leaving my phone somewhere else. Like I'm
that is a great way to go. I have found that every time I do that, like I feel better. Like my energy's up a little bit. I'm not as stressed. And it sucks. Wild.
It sucks because I don't have a landline. Like it's the only reason I would consider getting a landline is because if somebody wanted to get a hold of me, they're out of luck because I'm trying to de-stress, like even if somebody wanted to give me something good or good news, I'm trying to detach from the cliche of walking around my house just looking at my palm. Like I don't want to do that. but it also means I miss some phone calls on occasion. And that's the only thing that sucks. Cause like it's the all in one. And I'm the guy that will call you. I'm the one who likes talking on the phone.
You like to talk on that phone.
I'm a talker, not a texter. I will text. Like, I guess I've learned which friends are texters, and it's like, they're never going to pick up the phone. So I will text them.
Mm-hmm. But you know what? If you have your phone away for a reason, then even talking, right? You probably shouldn't even be you're probably focusing on something then, right? So even the phone calls, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's fair.
Would constitute like, hey, I don't even have time for that right now. It's like emails. Man, I used to, if a client emailed, even if it wasn't important, I was like, I gotta get back to him. Now, sometimes it takes me a day or two, depending on the severity of it, right? And they know, especially when I'll email them and not get a response back for 2 days. And I respect their time. They were busy. I get it. I finally have settled down a little bit, and I can go, okay, I'll get back to that once I finish these tasks, which are important. Then I'll get back to them and work on the next thing. But man, and thinking about, you mentioned the tabs.
Yeah,
I can see myself. I do it all the time. I will catch myself. Click on the Gmail tab. Click on my work Gmail tab. Click on ESPN. Click on this tab. And literally 1, 2, 3, and I just go back and forth out of boredom, just because I need that hit of dopamine. I need to see a different screen. So I just start clicking through tabs.
That's the thing. I sadly, whether it's disconnecting to go for a walk or listen to music. And when I say listen to music, I mean like actively, like put on headphones attached to my phone, but keep my phone in my pocket and not look at anything else. I'm just like, basically I'm trying to recreate the end of Dazed and Confused, but unlike the end of that movie, I'm not physically tied to my headphones by a 3-foot cable. I'm wirelessly enabled, and so I can go for a walk around my neighborhood or lay in my bed. Either one's fine. But like, while the dopamine hit is not nearly as large, the less I stay, the more I stay away from the actual phone and the actual stimuli all around, the more impactful that dopamine is of just like, I'm just listening to a cool album I've never heard before. Which, by the way, it's not that there's no dopamine hit there. It's just that by comparison to, I got 3 Twitter notifications and I got 5 Facebook things and 2 people hit me up. Like, you can't compare them. So like when you finally remove them, so much better. But like, I forgot how much I loved music just for music's sake.
Right.
When I was 14, you couldn't get me to shut up about music. Now I want to listen to it. That's my safe space. Mm-hmm. You have to go back.
Yeah. Let's go back a little bit to help ourselves move forward, which is wild to think, but I think it's true. Not to sound like an old man. Okay, boomer, but I don't know. I'm worried about those kids with those screens attached to their hips 24/7. I can't imagine, I think we just barely escaped it, but
we absolutely did. I mean, I tell people all the time, like, for the first 2 years I was in college, we had dial-up internet. I mean, it was paid for by the college, but you had to plug into a modem. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until like my junior year we got Wi-Fi, and it wasn't that good. And it was a very rural campus, and there was only 3 places that were like 2 by 2 square feet, various places where you could actually get cell reception on your Nokia brick. I am thankful for not having smartphones and pictures. Like, we were able to do dumb shit and get away with it.
Yep. Oh man. Yeah. Thank goodness we didn't have cell phones.
And it's not that I'm ashamed. I think everybody does stupid shit when they're young, but just, I don't have.
Ours isn't out there.
our not only is ours not out there. Hey, Jimmy, do you want to go out for a drink? Is not going to be met with you going, is somebody going to catch me doing something stupid with their phone? Like, that was never, like, maybe you do something stupid and maybe 2 people would see it, and in a week everybody would forget.
Yeah.
This is the way it used to be.
some very important lessons can be learned, I think.
Yeah.
But
so I did want to ask, you could have chosen any medium, right? Like there are, when you started the YouTube channel, you could have done a podcast, you could have done the written form. Like you had, I mean, obviously you already had to learn how to write. You probably did voiceover, so you're not afraid of a microphone. And obviously you were in front of a camera, but you had all these different platforms available to you. So, I mean, not to put you too on the spot, but like, why did you choose video when all of these choices were available to you?
It was the one I was most comfortable with, most familiar with. But
Okay.
I think it's the one that gave me the greatest opportunity to. I mean, just having the ability, the sound, the pictures, to bring it all together. I can, whether I am, or people consider me to be good at what I do, I consider myself to be pretty creative. And if I'm not expressing it, I think in a visual manner, then there's just like this empty space. It's like I need to get it out, and this is the way that I need to do it. So I just kind of put all of those passions together and the knowledge, and I still enjoy being, quote unquote, on air.
Okay.
Like I enjoy being in front of a camera. I enjoy talking to people. It's just something I'm like, hey, I'm comfortable. I like it. I do work behind the camera. Let's just put this all together and let's just do it and see how it goes. It's only been, I mean, the channel's only been around for about a year and 5 months. So it's still, I want to say, finding its identity. And, with work, I hate, it sounds like an excuse, but people are like, well, you have 24 hours in a day. I'm like, I know. And sometimes I spend 15 of them on work, on work.
Yeah.
So I can't get the videos out as often as I would like, but, I test a little something here. Let's try this. Let's see what they like. And man, the numbers vary so wildly. Sometimes we're talking, He-Man video gets 145,000 views. Another He-Man video is sitting at 350, so I don't know from one day to the next, but I do it and I put all the hours in, and I'm usually happy when I'm done, regardless of the views.
Okay.
I always learn something. This is a cool concept in terms of editing, or this is a cool visual that I learned how to create for this video. Maybe it only got 300 views, and that sucks. But now I know how to do this.
Yep.
10 years ago, I would have forget about it. That way of thinking would have never happened. So it's like, what are you going to do? I have no control over it. Maybe there are some lessons. Maybe my thumbnail sucks. Maybe my title sucks. I'm working on those because that's the window to your video.
Yeah, that's the part that scares me the most when I listen to creators talk, especially on YouTube, is like, yeah, my thumbnails I need to get better at my thumbnail game. And I'm just like, maybe it's because I'm in that vein where I'm trying to go out of my comfort zone and try and find new people. So I'm not always watching the same creators. So if I subscribe to you, I subscribe to you. Like, I don't just subscribe for the heck of it. Like, I'll try and watch everything I can to the people I'm subscribed to. So I don't care. I'm one of those 350. Like, I don't care about your thumbnail game. But I know that in the wider spectrum of everything else, that's important for you. If you want your YouTube channel to be firstiary, we're going to make that a thing. We're going to make it a thing.
Yeah, I like it. It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Spread the word, folks.
But also,
firstiary.
I think you're in your infancy, relatively speaking. Like, take the risks now. I think it, as much as you and I can sit here and go like, if it's your passion, you'll take chances when you have 1 million subscribers. But I think realistically, sometimes we all get complacent if we got there. Like, I'm not there, but I feel like if I did, like if I was pulling like Marin or Rogan numbers, maybe I wouldn't be me. I don't know. And so I feel like, by all means, when you're still growing, take all the chances you can get. Expand.
That's the fun part.
Everywhere.
That's the beautiful thing about it. I mean, to some extent, it's like, you know what? The editing portion, sometimes the process, sometimes the journey sucks. Okay. And it's a topic I might love, but the journey sucks, right? You're doing your research. Someone says this episode came out in 1984. Someone else says it came out in 1983. And you're like, how, this should be very simple. So now I need to find a third source, a fourth source. It could be anything. I've come across so many articles. People can just write whatever they want, throw it up on the internet. And when you're doing your research, now it's, do I so I'm starting to find sources I trust, but they're not always there. Who's the Ubu, the dog expert? So if I find information over here that says this and something else over here says this, who do I trust? Well, now I've got to find more. And so that's when it can get very frustrating. But there's this part of me that won't stop until I know. Okay. I know this is now accurate. Or if I'm not sure, there are certain ways to go about it, whether that's, of course, in the news business, attribution was a big thing, according to. So if you're ever unsure, if you're doing your own YouTube channel and you're unsure, or attribute to a source so you can get that fact out, but nobody will call you out on it. That's the big thing. I mean, you attribute in the news so that you don't get sued, right? But in this case, sometimes that's all you have. That's all you have might be attribution if you're trying to get a point across or a fact out. But yeah, sometimes the journey is rough. But in the end, I've been happy with everything I've put out, and I've learned something from all of it. So what more can you do? And for me, it's, sure, I would love 1 million people to subscribe, but maybe, like in the case of chatting with you right now, maybe some eyes get on the channel. It's not 1 million, but maybe it's like the right 5 eyes that open up another door to something else. Because ultimately, I would love to tell these stories. I would love to work on documentaries in this 80s, 90s nerd realm. Ultimately would be my thing. I would love to have the time to put together 30-minute long videos. On my favorite topics, but we'll start with 7 to 8 at the moment. 8 minutes gives you that, that mid roll, that mid, that mid video ad, which I don't turn on, by the way, because I think it's just I did a video on The Exorcist. That's the other issue with my channel. That's what do I talk about? I'm still trying to find its identity, one week it was He-Man, the next was The Exorcist, because it was its 50th anniversary. But that video did very well. But, you're getting into it. This is The Exorcist, right? So I said, no mid-roll. We don't want to interrupt the experience.
For the amount of creators I meet and the varying reasons for creating things, it's always refreshing to run into someone like Jimmy who's creating because he has stories to tell. As you heard, he'd like the channel to take off, and who wouldn't? But he's not chasing the views. He's doing something that interests him, and hopefully something that you can enjoy with him. But it's hard for him, or anyone, to do all of that without a little focus. And as we discussed, our focus could always be better. Too many tabs open. How many do you have? Too many distractions from alerts and notifications, from always being connected. Do yourself and your friends a favor. Make an effort to disconnect. I'm aware that parents of all kinds are dealing with screen time in a way that makes it feel like a fairly large issue, especially for parents of children under the age of 15, but I remember being told not to spend too much time in front of the TV or computer, and remember, that was dial-up internet. But now the screen time issue is impacting the lives not just of those children, but of the parents and the world as a whole. Disconnecting is a way to reset yourself, and it should be done as often as you possibly can. Technology was meant to make our lives better, not worse. Being addicted to your favorite device is not making your life better. So, read a book. Change your digital magazine subscriptions to physical ones. Take a walk. Listen to some music without staring at a screen. Have a meal with no phones. These are but a few of the many ways to disconnect. And trust me, though it may feel odd at first, eventually you'll come to enjoy not being so connected. Thanks for listening to The Palmer Files, episode 120, and now for the official business. The Palmer Files releases every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. If you're still listening, I encourage you to join the discussion. All links are available in the show notes. There you will find links to James's YouTube channel, an 80s and 90s nerd realm that you should definitely check out at youtube.com/nostalgic. That's NOSTALGAK, and his other pertinent links and socials as well. The music for this episode was provided by Henno Heiter. Email can be sent to this show at thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. And remember, your home for all things Agent Palmer is agentpalmer.com. All right, Jimmy, do you have one final question for me?
This is kind of maybe, I don't think convoluted, but it's been striking up a conversation lately. And we were just chatting, I'll say off mic.
Sure.
We mentioned Ready Player One.
Yeah. Phenomenal
books. If you haven't read them, they are amazing. So much so that my best friend and I've known him longer than any of my siblings. Okay. Like since we were very tiny. Neither one of us will watch the movie, because I don't want to see it outside of my own imagination. Okay. So I have yet to watch Ready Player One, the movie. I just won't do it. It's the only time I've ever said that about a movie. Like, oh, I read the book, I don't want that disturbed. I'm not watching the movie. But that said, there's, it's been in the news lately. So I think Disney and Epic Games are going to try to create, Epic Games is Fortnite, I think, right?
Yep.
They want to create this expansive open games world, with, I think, eventually with VR, right? So it's sounding more and more like a Ready Player One type world.
Yeah.
Is that sort of thing, right? Even right out of the book, something you would be fearful of or excited for? I would probably live in it guilt-free and just be like, I'm good.
No, I'm fearful of it completely.
Yeah.
100% fearful, because like I try and disconnect as much as possible. And like I read Ready Player One in a day. I just couldn't put it down. This is amazing. But I'm happy for that to be fiction. Okay. I look at the Apple VR and the Meta VR and I go, no, I don't want a hap suit. I don't want goggles. I don't want any of that. Like I want to experience real life, and I want to be in it all the time. Mm-hmm. Famously in the books, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't read them, but Artemis is like, we're going to turn it off like 2 days a week. And if that was me, I would be like, I'm going to turn it on 1 day a week.
Right.
And everybody else is going to live in the real world for the other 6. And you and I can maybe talk about the actual book and what it means, because like there are some things about the end that I'm like, well, hold on now. We didn't solve a lot of things. We solved one thing in this universe. But generally speaking, I am all for being disconnected. I don't know that that kind of in I don't want to say inclusive, but like expansive universe is good for us. I don't know. I don't know. Everybody needs to roll a d20 and see how much psychic damage they take for every hour they have their hap suit on, right? Like it just feels like one of those things. And I think for me, if it wasn't about the digital currency in the world of Ready Player One, I would be a little bit more okay with it. But I don't like the idea of paying for something in the real world to put it on and then try and earn more money, earn more digital currency. Or I don't, that's the part one of the parts I don't like about it, but I don't know if I could live in it. Like I was happy to read about it, but by the same token, love Lord of the Rings. I don't know if I want to live there. You know what I mean?
You want to live in Middle Earth? No Middle Earth? Yeah, I get it.
So,
I think on the surface it's exciting, right? It seems like it would be cool for it. What about what is it? It's augmented reality, correct? That's when you get a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Because I saw.
I think it goes back to my being okay not knowing things. Augmented reality. I mean, potentially you could turn it on and off as you wish, but I would spend more time with it off. So it probably wouldn't do me very good. I'm okay figuring it out on my own. I don't know if that makes me stubborn or just old fashioned. But one of the things I own a home, and I know I'm privileged to own a home. It's not a big home, but it's a home. And one of the things that I'd never realized, because growing up, my dad was, had a son, and my dad's like, all right, you're old enough, you mow the lawn, right? And it was always a chore. But I worked in digital marketing when I bought a home. I loved mowing my lawn.
Isn't that funny how that works out?
I spent all day moving pixels around and maybe writing words for a blog and creating video and creating an audio and a graphic. I got to punch out at 5, come home and physically do something that was a chore for all of my life until I spent all of my life online and went, this is amazing. I did that. Look, like there's a before and after. I did that physically. And I think generally speaking, I don't want things like that to become more exciting. I almost want the lawn to become boring because I did all these other things and not in the digital space. And I think that's where some of that Ready Player One stuff is a bit like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. I have my VR headset. It's a lot of fun, small doses. It's heavy, clunky, and I'm sure they'll just get thinner and thinner until they're just like in Ready Player One. You're essentially wearing glasses. But I do think it's coming. Like I think I saw some videos online. I don't know if they were real or staged, but it's people at this point wearing the headsets and doing the augmented thing just literally out in public because they're probably just getting the using their phone to get signal, and then they're just walking around and got that, and you see them touching the air, pushing little buttons that we can't see on screen. And I can't imagine that that's not going to just there's going to be this domino effect moving forward, and just seeing how quickly technology how it develops, how quickly it develops. There's a word for it and it escapes me.
Well,
but,
I mean, that's all fine. But I guess my concern is that most of the technologies, because you and I are of the same age, most of the technologies we grew up adapting, right? Because obviously we started in an age where there wasn't really an internet. And if there was, it was called Prodigy, right? Or like AOL before the chat function, like Netscape. I still have a 3.5 floppy of a Netscape install, but like, so we've adapted all these things as we've gone along. And had we gone back in 20, 30 years ago asked younger us what was going to come of this technology, you and I would have been wrong more than we were right, based on not growth and not like the way technology has changed, but just the way it's been used. And so I think there's going to be some kind of pushback where it's like, no, I want to touch grass. And right now people are throwing touch grass as like a derogatory thing. Like, oh, you spend it. But I think it feels like we're coming to a point where touch grass will become like, no, this is my work-life balance. I'm going outside. Like, I'm not going to do this Zoom call. We scheduled it from 3 to 4. It's 5 o'clock. I'm out. And I mean, I'm going outside, right? Like, there is no, I like the theory of Ready Player One, and I enjoy the story of it. But I think I'd rather go for a walk in my neighborhood than choose from a directory of fictional worlds.
Right. Everything in moderation, which I say a lot, but it's true.
Yeah.
I feel like it's true in anything and everything. I think it can be great and it can be fun as long as you don't get too caught up in it. Just like having 100 tabs open. It's the tabs. It's the tabs. It's that's not moderation. There are tabs, and you got to close them. To find the strength to close some, it's terrible.